how to stop overeating, or how to stop eating when you are full, when you're not hungry anymore. We're addressing this right now. Overeating is a really huge issue that a lot of people have, and I know this because I get so many messages from people asking me how they can stop overeating, telling me that they eat pretty healthy but they aren't able to stop eating when they're full. They don't even know what it feels like to be full when they should stop, and so they just end up overeating. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what the signs of overeating are, and then also how to stop overeating depending on which type of overeating you're doing. So first of all, what are the signs of overeating? Overeating is basically feeling that you are overly full, overly stuffed, that you are going way beyond the comfortable point of fullness, and that may lead to uncomfortable signs such as nausea, bloating, stomach pain, gas, all of these things. And overeating is not just eating slightly over your fullness for one meal. It also has to be something that's pretty consistent. So if you're constantly overeating, so constantly doing the things that I just described and then getting these feelings, you have an issue when it comes to overeating. If it just happens once in a while that you go past your comfortable fullness, that's totally fine. And to make things kind of simple, there are two main reasons why you could be overeating. Number one is because you have no general notion when it comes to nutrition, and specifically portion sizes, calories, macronutrients, things like that. So you just don't know how much you should be eating. And then number two, which is probably the most common, is if you are kind of stuck in the diet mentality, diet culture. So you want to be restricting your food intake, but then since you are nutrient deprived, you have like binge episodes or episodes where you constantly overeat. Or if in the past you've experienced like extreme hunger from restriction, then now you are overeating to compensate. So if your situation is number one, what you need to do is you need to learn the nutrition basics, get the nutrition basics straight. Then I have two options for you. A cheap one is you can look at my video I made right here for healthy eating for beginners. I'll be leaving it in the description as well, and it kind of covers the basics pretty quickly. But if you want to go more in depth, I actually created a whole online course called Nutrition for Newbies, where I literally talk you through the entire process that you need to build healthy eating habits that actually last. And there are tons of modules that are there to help you understand nutrition and get the right eating habits. So you can definitely check that out. And the bonus thing is that you can actually have access to a free webinar that's like almost 50 minutes long, I think, where I go into detail about these things as well. And that's completely free. So if that's interesting to you, definitely check out the link that I have in the description. It's the first link. In any case, I really recommend that you register to this webinar, and then you'll get all the course information and you can see if that's something that interests you or not, because that is really something fundamental that you need to get right before you're able to actually get the healthy eating habits and healthy relationship with food that you want, getting those nutrition basics. And if you're in the second situation, I'm going to tell you what to do in that case right now. Here are tips to stop overeating. And the first thing you need to do is you need to actually be eating full, healthy, balanced meals. First and most important thing to do is to actually make sure that your meals are balanced. And this is like the first tip that I would give for any sort of nutrition issue. It always comes down to, are your meals healthy, balanced, filling, satisfying? Do they do all of these things? And if they don't, then you're probably going to be lacking either nutrients, or you're not going to have your emotional hunger satisfied, and that is going to lead you to overeat to compensate. You need to make sure that you're getting enough fiber, which really fills you up and keeps your gut healthy, and also that you're getting plenty of nutrient-dense foods. And ensuring that you're doing all of these things will eliminate like the base cause for overeating, which is that you're just not fueling your body with the correct foods, so you're going to get the energy and the nutrients elsewhere by overeating. And also, if you're the type of person who tends to kind of binge and overeat on like processed foods, it's normally much easier to binge on these foods and to overeat with these foods than it is, because they're like highly palatable, than it is to overeat more whole food types. So if you're making sure that you're getting plenty of whole foods, that leaves like less room to get in more processed foods that can lead to overeating. The next thing you need to do is you need to recognize your trigger foods. And right off the bat, I want to say that recognizing does not mean banning at all. I just mean to say that you need to be aware of the certain foods that you feel that you overeat on. If there are any specific trigger foods, maybe you just feel that you overeat anything, but if you do have specific trigger foods that cause you to overeat that food specifically, it's definitely good to know about these foods and then to adapt your way of eating around these foods. The main reason why these foods may be trigger foods for you is because you restrict them, and you definitely need to let go of the restriction that you have surrounding these foods, and we're going to address that more in the point that's coming right after this. And I also made a video on facing your fear foods that can probably help you if you're in this situation as well. You can check that out here or in the description. And I also still want to mention that any person, even if they have the best relationship with food, if they never overeat, if they are always really in tune with their hunger and fullness cues, if you put their favorite food right in front of them, they're gonna eat it. 90%, 99% chance that they're gonna eat it. So that doesn't make you like a failure or anything like that. It's just important to know that. And there's a balance, there's a middle ground between banning your trigger foods from your house, which I definitely don't suggest you do, and also having them like readily accessible all day, every day, everywhere you are. You can find the middle ground. You can make sure that your trigger foods are like in your cupboards, not like off limits or anything, but just so you're not thinking of them and they're not like in your face 24/7. So it's very important that you also remove restriction in order to prevent overeating. Because if you're restricting a bunch of foods, if there are a bunch of foods that are like off limits to you, or that you're like, okay, I can't have too much of this food or anything like that, then you are very likely to be like to have your physical hunger needs met, yes, but not your emotional hunger, because you're not actually satisfied with the meals that you're eating. And so this can definitely cause you to overeat, or at least it feels like you're overeating because you're going past your physical hunger, but actually you're not going past your emotional hunger. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you're catering to both types of hunger. And I have a video on emotional hunger versus physical hunger that you can check out right here or in the description. So when I talk about restriction, I don't mean that you should be eating your favorite comfort foods all day, every day, and never try to diminish them or prevent yourself from having them. I just mean that they need to be readily available to you if you want to incorporate them in a balanced way into your meals, that you are able to do so without feeling restricted, without feeling like you're doing something bad. For instance, let's say you have a meal of like lentils and sweet potatoes and broccoli, and then you end that meal with a couple of Oreos. That's totally fine, and that will likely prevent you from overeating on Oreos and eating like the entire box right after your meal, because you are physically satisfied with your meal but not emotionally. As usual, if foods are off limits, then you're more likely to go overboard and to overeat when you do have access to them. But if they aren't restricted, if you can freely access them, you won't have the tendency to do that. And I made a video on food obsession that can also help you deal with these things if you're interested, right here or in the description. The next point is that it can be really helpful if you actually plan your meals, because a lot of the time we have these ideas in our minds about how we are going to eat healthy and how we're going to have like the healthy balanced meals that I talked about in the previous point. But then what happens is that you get home from a long day at work and you don't want to make that balanced meal. You're kind of too lazy to do that. And since you're really hungry because you probably worked a lot and didn't have time to fully be in tune with your lunch and stuff like that, and it's maybe late or whatever, you're gonna just want to eat junk food, or you're gonna have a tendency to really overeat during these moments. And if you already have your meal prepped, even better, but I know it can be difficult to prep meals all the time. But if you have at least your meal planned in your head, it's gonna be much easier not to go overboard and not to like overeat on things that you hadn't planned to initially. So if you're able to prep certain meals so that they're already there, you can come home and you can have a meal already there, already portioned out for you. You're much less likely to overeat when that happens. But if you're not able to do that, just knowing that you have a general idea of the meal that you wanna make and that you know that you have the right ingredients to make that meal in your fridge, in your pantry, that you don't have to have an excuse not to make it, can be very helpful. And also, I do want to point out that even if you do have a meal planned, or if you have portioned out something but you're still hungry after that, you can absolutely eat more. I'm not saying like you should only stick to the tiny portion. I'm just saying that you're more likely to overeat even if you don't want to, if you're not hungry, if you don't like actually physically need to, if you have to build an entire meal from scratch when you're tired and you end up eating foods that are highly palatable, kind of more comfort foods. Practice mindful eating. So this one probably comes as no surprise, but when you aren't tuned in with your body signals, then you are going to be much more likely to overeat. And mindful eating has many different aspects, components to it, and I have like a playlist on mindful and intuitive eating that you can check out here or in the description if you're interested in learning more. But in short, mindful eating just means taking the time to focus and think about the food that you are consuming. And you have to make sure that you are eating your food fully focused on your food, that you're taking the time to chew, that you're taking the time between each bites to kind of like put down your silverware and just take a moment to appreciate the food, and that you're doing all of this without any distractions, like you're not watching TV and then mindlessly eating your food. It's also a good idea to be able to position yourself on the hunger and fullness scale. This will really help you with not overeating, because before you start a meal, you can ask yourself, okay, where am I on this scale? So it's a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being extremely hungry and 10 being like super stuffed, like Christmas dinner stuffed. I have a video that fully explains the hunger and fullness scale that you can check out here or in the description. And again, the course that I offer has tons of information on mindful and intuitive eating if you're interested. And finally, the last thing you can do to help prevent overeating is to really tune in with yourself, because sometimes overeating may just be a symptom of another cause and you need to actually address that cause. Because as humans, we're very quick to turn to food when something isn't right in our lives as kind of a coping mechanism, and that's fine, it's okay, but we do need to figure out the actual cause of that to address this and then be able to move on. So you can ask yourself if you feel happy, if you feel stressed or tired, if you feel that you have like a good general healthy state, if you feel bored, if you feel sad, like all of these things. Ask yourself these questions and see if food is there to actually compensate for one of these things. And if that is the case for you, I have just the video to help you. It's my video on how to stop emotional eating that you can check out right here or in the description. So I hope that this video helped you and that a few of the tips were helpful in preventing you from overeating. I know that this is a complex process, but recognizing it and taking steps to make it better is already a great first step. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like it and subscribe, and see you on my next one. Bye!